Let us now look at chapter 4 verse 34 and various literalist readings. It is important to say that chapter 4 verse 34 is not the only passage in the Qur'an that discusses gender relations. For example, chapter 2 verse 187 describes the marital relationship as reciprocal. Elsewhere, the Qur'an also says that women have rights over men, similar to those that men have over women. Further, marriage between husband and wife is described as a means of tranquility, protection, encouragement, peace, kindness, comfort, justice, mercy, and love. However, chapter 4 verse 34 is particularly significant because, according to some scholars, it is the most misunderstood and misused verse of the Qur'an when it comes to male-female relationships. It also has a tradition of being misunderstood by both Muslim and non-Muslim scholars. Now let's look at some of the translations that are commonly available today. One of the most commonly cited translations of the Qur'an, chapter 4 verse 34, comes from a scholar whose name is N.J. Dawood, a 20th century Jewish Iraqi scholar who translated a number of other Arabic works into English. His translation reads like this: Men have authority over women because God has made the one superior to the other, and because they spend their wealth to maintain them. Good women are obedient, they guard their unseen parts because God has guarded them. As for those from whom you fear disobedience, admonish them, forsake them in beds apart, and beat them. Then if they obey you, take no further action against them. Surely God is high, supreme. Although Dawood's translation of the Quran is widely available, it has not always been free from controversy. Some scholars feel that the translation has a strong bias against Islam. And in this particular case, Dawood translates the relevant part as beat them. In any case, there are other scholars who have reached different readings and interpretations of the passage, particularly when taking into account the social and historical context in which it was revealed. For some scholars, the key to understanding the verse lies in understanding the legal meaning and implications of the Arabic imperative وَاضْرِبُوهُنَّ, which Dawood translated as beat them. Muhammad Asad, a 20th century Muslim thinker, has put forward a better translation and interpretation of the passage. His translation reads, "And as for those women whose ill will you have reason to fear, admonish them first, then leave them alone in bed, then beat them. And if thereupon they pay you heed, do not seek to harm them." Although Asad still interprets daraba, the Arabic word daraba, to mean beat, he describes the verse as a gradual process for a man interacting with his wife within the marital relationship. Importantly for him, the verse stresses that men should not seek to harm their wives. Asad also argues that the word beat should not be interpreted literally, because the Prophet Muhammad did not beat his wives. For Asad, it makes no sense that the verse should affirm something that was so contrary to the Prophet's practice. Ahmad Ali, another scholar, again of the modern period, gives a very different meaning to the controversial phrase وَاضْرِبُوهُنَّ, usually translated as and beat them. He suggests that وَاضْرِبُوهُنَّ means have intercourse with them in the context of Qur'an chapter 4 verse 34. This changes the tone of the verse quite significantly. His interpretation of this part of the verse reads, "As for women you feel are averse, talk to them persuasively, then leave them alone in bed without molesting them, and go to bed with them when they are willing." Obviously, this is a very different reading of the verse. Overall, Ahmad Ali believes that women should be seen as individual agents who are capable of determining their own roles for themselves. Muslim feminists also reject interpretations of this verse that seem to permit wife beating. Amina Wadud, a well-known Muslim feminist and an academic in the area of gender and Quranic interpretation, argues that Islam teaches the importance of harmony and equality between spouses. She also notes that the Arabic term daraba does not necessarily have to be interpreted to indicate the use of force. Likewise, Khalid Abul Fadl, professor of law at University of California, LA, argues that daraba can have other meanings like to travel, get out, strike, or beat, to set up or establish, to give, condemn, ignore, or to seal, cover, or explain. The word has been used in a number of ways in the Quran itself. Lale Bakhtiyar, another Muslim feminist and scholar, argues that the idea that a Muslim man should beat his wife goes completely against the practice of the Prophet, something that Muslims strive to emulate in their day-to-day lives. She translates the relevant part of this verse as follows: "But those whose resistance you fear, then admonish them and abandon them in their sleeping place. Then go away from them. If they obey you, surely look not for any way against them. Truly, God is lofty, great." For this group of scholars in the modern period, a closer study of the key Arabic terms within this verse shows that to beat is not the only obvious interpretation of وَاضْرِبُوهُنَّ in the verse chapter 4 verse 34. Nor is it the most likely way it should be understood. Of course, they rely very heavily on the Prophet's practice in this regard. Other scholars have focused on the social and historical context of when the verse was revealed to show that it does not sanction wife beating.